Let's go to a story that impacts Australia, with President Donald Trump planning to increase the tariff rate on pharmaceutical imports to the US. Last year, Australia exported around $2.1 billion of medicinal and pharmaceutical products to the US, but that may change with President Trump determined to see manufacturing return to the US.
Pharmaceuticals will be tariffed probably at the end of the month, and we're going to start off with a low tariff and give the pharmaceutical companies a year or so to build, and then we're going to make it a very high tariff because we got to move them in. Look, there's two ways you do it. You make money or you have them move here so they don't have to pay the tariff. Those are the two ways. The pharmaceutical companies are moving back to America where they should be.
John, it may not be great for Australia, but he's not the president of Australia, and he wasn't elected on an Australia First platform. He was elected on an America First platform, and this is precisely what he campaigned on, returning manufacturing to the US.
So, Rita, part of what's going on here is that we import a huge percentage of our pharmaceuticals, especially our generics, from China. And that's just unacceptable. We can't be in a situation where the Chinese, at best a rival, if not an adversary of the US, are in a position to cut off our pharmaceuticals. And yet that's the position that we're in. And I think to some extent, Australia might be a little bit caught on the crossfire here. I don't mind Australia producing drugs for the US, but I don't want to rely on the Chinese for it.
No, well said. And I've got to say, our government hasn't exactly covered itself in glory in dealing with the US. We've got an ambassador who's on record saying terrible things about Donald Trump, and the Prime Minister and some of his ministers also. So we are, I think, we're in the freezer at the moment. Now, let's move on to the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Earlier today, Attorney General Pam Bondi said there's no change to her position on Jeffrey Epstein after President Trump suggested she could release more files. Do you see this as an issue, John, that could fracture Trump's supporter base? And why aren't we seeing more information released?
Well, I hope not, Rita. I think we should start with the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was a Democrat. He contributed to Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, a bunch of other Democrats. The only politician that he's known to have had a relationship with that was at all significant was Bill Clinton. So it's ironic that this hot potato is now dropping in the lap of a Republican administration that had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. But what I think is going on here, Rita, is that there are voluminous investigative files related to Epstein. Now, investigative files are never released. They aren't released, and they shouldn't be. They're full of false accusations, of hearsay, of people telling the police things that might be embarrassing about their observations of a crime or whatever, but are not criminal. And it's important that people be able to talk to the police without worrying that anything I say might show up in the newspapers in a couple of years. So I think that's what's happening. Yeah, there are files, but they are the kind of investigative files that are just never released.
But there was so much evidence. Jeffrey Epstein was known to have cameras in so many rooms in his mansions and on the island, and there was just all this evidence that was captured at some point, and you expect to see something out of that. You expect to see some of the influential, rich, powerful people that he had in his orbit exposed, but to have nothing, I think I can understand why there's a lot of people who are unhappy about it. On Jeffrey Epstein, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has denied that he worked with Israeli intelligence, that he was a part of Mossad in any way. John, what do you make of that? I'm not sure that even that is going to convince too many people who are interested in this case. Again, there's so much mystery surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's rise to incredible wealth and influence. That's something that we're still not 100% clear on.
Well, Rita, maybe somebody else knows something that I don't, but I'm not aware of any evidence whatsoever that Jeffrey Epstein had anything to do with the Mossad. That is something that was just tossed out there by Tucker Carlson with no supporting evidence whatsoever. And as far as I know, there isn't any. So if somebody's got some evidence that somehow links Epstein to the Israeli government, I'd like to see it. But as far as I know, it doesn't exist.
Now, it's evident that the president doesn't care much about this issue. He sees it as an irritation, really, a distraction from the major issues. I think that's a mistake, but you can understand because he's dealing with some fairly major issues. And one of the things that he wants highlighted is his incredible success on the border. Have a look at this.
Border data for the month of June highlights the lowest month of encounters ever recorded. Customs and Border Protection says it is the second month in a row of zero releases of illegal aliens into the U.S., compared to almost 28,000 releases in June of last year.
John, the data around illegal immigration is quite astonishing. I don't think anyone expected that these policies, Trump's policies, would end the crisis in a matter of weeks, but that's what's happened, and those historically low numbers are holding.
Rita, this is an unbelievable success. And you think back to the latter days of the Biden administration where they were saying, oh, it's impossible. You can't close the border. We need new legislation. The Republicans won't pass new laws. Well, it turns out, as we all suspected, Rita, that all we needed was a president who actually wanted to do his constitutional duty and enforce the law. And once they started enforcing the law, guess what? No more significant level of infiltration by illegal immigrants. And now they're having great success in convincing illegal immigrants to self-deport. They're doing things like the alligator Alcatraz, publicizing that facility, obviously for the purpose of inspiring people who are here illegally to decide they'd be better off to go back to their home countries where they're citizens.
It's been quite incredible. There's some polling coming out saying that the deportation program is not as popular as it once was. I've got my doubts about those polls. We'll check in on them next week because they do seem to jump around the place. But we always love your insights. John Hinderaker, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.